we've done the blood results because there were a lot of people interested, and me personally, I was also rather interested to see if I didn't have any deficiencies and so on after 2 years of being fully fruitarian. So only fruits, no vegetables, no salt, no concoctions, no fat, not that much fats, although durian is rather fatty and I ate a lot of durian, but rather clean, right? Like completely fruits, nothing else than fruits.
As for me, I was doing a 100% fruitarian diet for the last 2 years, and the 2 years before that I attempted a fruitarian diet, which resulted in 95% raw, and before that I was an omnivore like everybody else. And the funny thing is, for the last 10 months since we met, we actually ate the same thing at every meal. Meaning, we ate the same fruits but also the same amount, because I eat no less than Simon, right? So this is actually a very interesting experiment, and today we decided to talk about my blood results, even though our results are very similar, because it's much harder to have good blood results when you're 38 than when you're 25 like Simon.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, also my blood results were kind of very good. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so there's no deficiencies whatsoever in my blood results, so that's why we look at Justina's blood results, because there are some
more interesting
things to discuss in there. Okay.
Let's get started. I'm gonna take on the first one, the most interesting one to everybody, which is glucose. See, what the question we get is, if you all eat all this fruit, isn't that too much sugar you're ingesting in the diet? Sugar has had a lot of bad press in the last year. A lot of people have made claims it causes diabetes. So with my diet, which is 95% carbohydrates, I eat sugar, right? If anybody should have diabetes, it should be me, right? Because I get all my calories from sugar. And here's the thing, right? Our results for blood sugar level are incredibly low. Mine is 80, while yours is 78. Whereas, anything under 100 is great, and 100 to 125 is pre-diabetes, and over 126 is diabetes. So here you go, here's the results. You can eat all the sugar you want for 2 to 4 years, and your blood sugar level is very low. Why is that? That is because diabetes is actually the disease of excess fat in your blood. What happens when you eat animal flesh, as in meat or dairy products, the excess fat in the blood binds to the insulin receptors, rendering them useless to bind with the sugar molecules, right? So the insulin receptor is coated with the fat and cannot bind to the sugar molecule. The sugar then stays in the blood and is unable to move into the cells, giving you high blood sugar, which can then lead to diabetes. So my advice is, eat all the fruits you want.
On the results that we're going to project right now. And you can see that our HDL is perfect within the normal range, and our LDL is actually very low. You want between 100 and 130 to be safe, and below 100 is really, really good. And Justina has 90 and I have 78.
Unbelievable.
So my bad cholesterol is almost not there. It has to be there because you have to balance out, right? But it's so low, it's so good, epic results. And then there's another one which is called triglycerides, and your triglycerides is another fat in your blood. It's different from cholesterol. It's the fat that stores in your fat cells, and it actually gives your body energy. And a high value of this triglycerides is directly linked to heart diseases, to cardiovascular diseases, increases the risk of heart diseases, right? As you can see, our values are also perfect right here.
Okay, on to the next one, a super interesting one, especially for vegans and vegetarians out there, vitamin B12. It is said that as a vegan, you cannot have any sources of B12 in your diet because on the most part they come from animal products. But I pray to argue that B12 deficiencies are not limited to vegans or vegetarians. Actually, more than half of Americans over the age of 50 have B12 deficiency. Back in the old days when we lived in the jungle, right, the human body produced vitamin B12, and when you're pooping, you're getting B12 on your fingertips and into the soil. And then when you're picking fruits or veggies from the soil, right, you're ingesting the B12. Now that everything is so hygienic and the soils are depleted, the sources of vitamin B12 are pretty much scarce.
They're non-existing.
They're pretty much non-existent, right? So the result was this. Simon's B12 was within the norm at 245. My B12 was 162, with the norm being anything above
190?
190, I think, right? So
Yeah.
mine was below the norm,
97.
but just below the norm. And this might be due to several reasons. One of them being that I have a history of non-assimilation of B12 running in the last 2 generations of my family. So it's very likely that from a genetic standpoint, my body is not so good at retaining vitamin B12. However, after consulting the hematologist, he told us that my B12 is just under the border, so it's nothing to worry about. Definitely not a cause to take injections.
It has to do with the diet, of course, if you have enough B12, but we've been eating exactly the same in the last 10 months. Maybe I ate a little more durian.
Maybe 5% more durian,
Yeah.
right? But if it had something to do with the diet, he would also have a B12 deficiency.
And I have perfect values, so. The next ones are going to be a little less important, you know, but they're still very interesting to look at. So first of all is iron, right? Nowadays we can get iron in fortified cereal, we have to eat meat to get our iron, you know, there's a lot of myths around it. And if you don't have enough iron in your blood, you're going to get anemia, right? Your skin is going to turn more white. So iron is also very important because it produces hemoglobin, which actually carries the oxygen in your blood, and that's very important for athletic performance and for brain function, because the more oxygen, the more function and the more performance you can expect, right? So her iron levels are 82, and the hematologist in Poland, the specialist in blood work, actually told us that that's like a young man. He said it was so good, she made her iron as a young man in her blood. So that's epic results, right?
Okay, on to the next one. Next one is folate. You might be familiar with folate as folic acid, which is actually a synthesized a supplement, right? And pregnant women are told to supplement on folic acid because it prevents neural tube defects in the babies. However, the new studies actually prove that folic acid can lead to prostate cancer. So the only way to get it is folate, is to get it in fruit. And another name for folate is vitamin B9, also known as the happiness vitamin, right? High levels of folate are known to increase your happiness levels. But on a molecular level, folate means the creation of new cells, right? So it means a high level of folate means your body is regenerating faster. And here's the thing, our folate levels are like over the roof. Like the norm is 3.9 and ours is over 20, which means the creation of new cells is proportional to that of a young baby. I want to take the next one. I'm going to take sodium,
Okay.
because we eat a salt-free diet of only fruits, right? And the low levels of sodium can lead to nausea, vomiting, dizziness, right? But the whole population has the opposite problem. They have high blood pressure due to excess sodium in the diet. And it turns out that eating just fruits, we have the sodium exactly spot on in the middle of the sodium range. So you can eat no salt and you can have the perfect sodium results.
Yeah, that's an epic result, man.
Yeah, man.
I always thought I needed salt. That's complete bullshit, man. Salt is for the fish
Talking
in the sea.
about bullshit, let's talk about protein.
Yeah, protein is the biggest bullshit, you know. They all say, where do you get your protein from, bro?
Right?
And it's so ridiculous, man. I eat about 2 to 5% of all my calories a day from protein, and I still get more than 40 grams of protein, or even some days 70 grams of protein if I eat some avocados or durian here and there. So just eat your fruits and you're gonna have protein. You can see on the blood results, my protein is absolutely perfect.
Absolutely. Nobody asked the gorilla or the hippopotamus, right? Where does he get his
Where
protein?
do the animals that you eat get their protein from?
Where does the cow get its
From
protein?
the grass, from
Absolutely.
the plants, from the fruits. So why would you eat actually the dead meat?
There's one more that I want to touch on, and that's calcium, because you remember the campaigns where you had the milk mustache, right? Like, you need calcium for strength, so for strong bones. That is actually the myth. The bigger the dairy consumption in the population, the higher the osteoporosis curve in the population. And osteoporosis is, the disease of weak bones in the elderly age. And we eat no dairy products whatsoever, and as you can see, our calcium is spot on, both Simons and I, in the middle of the range. Not only that, we don't even eat leafy greens and vegetables, which are high in calcium, which is what a lot of vegans do. We're saying you don't even need to eat dark leafy greens for your calcium. You can just eat sweet fruits and you're fine on the calcium front.
And I want to pick up on that because it comes towards the next result, which is TSH, which means thyroid stimulating hormone. So how does it fit in? You have an endocrine system, which is all your glands. It's your thymus, it's your pineal gland, which is called the third eye. It's your parathyroid, it's your thyroid, it's your adrenal glands, and these are all connected through a system, a very complex system. But the thing is, if one of these glands doesn't work optimally, the other glands will not work either, right? So your thyroid is actually the one who arranges, who balances out the hormones in your body, right? So if you drink, for example, dairy, which is milk or cheese or whatever, right? Or even eat meat, these hormones that have been ingested in the animals to produce more or to, sedate them so that they don't get wild or whatever, these all come in you and it disrupts your thyroid. And once your thyroid is disrupted, your hormone balance gets out of shape, right? And that's why you get hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. I had it as well.
And that's when you get polycystic ovaries, that's when you get excess hair on women, that's when you get acne, that's when you get skin colorations, that's when you get...
Anyway, so many diseases, man. And the thing is, with the calcium as well, your thyroid and your parathyroid are linked in the endocrine system, and your thyroid regulates the hormones, so this one is disrupted by the dairy, right, or by the meat, and your parathyroid is also disrupted, right, because they're in the same system, and your parathyroid is actually the one that regulates the calcium in your body, right, and that says, okay, these bones need more calcium, this needs more calcium, I have to take away calcium here, right? So what happens is, if you eat meat or you ingest dairy, your calcium is not gonna get there. So they say you have to eat dairy for calcium, but it's the opposite.
You have to avoid dairy
for calcium, and you have to actually eat the fruits, which is the simple conclusion. Yeah. So anyway, you can see our blood results are absolutely phenomenal.
Actually, the doctor was actually curious what diet and what lifestyle we eat to get such blood results. And the blood results were in Dutch, right? Yeah. But he was a Polish dude who could actually figure them out. He had a good knowledge of the language, right? And I could see his geeky smile. He was going like, oh, that's like that. Oh, as he went down the results, and he was writing it down in his notebook, and I could see the enthusiasm on his face.
They were very stoked.
He was stoked to look at our blood results. So this is the conclusion. 100% fruitarian diet gets you all the nutrients.